Okay, so today we are doing another episode. This is Candid Cinematography Adda. What we are doing is today we are mentioning the number of cameras. So far you have seen that we have discussed few cinematographers you should know. Something to start with, we have talked about the aperture triangle, which is ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. And if you go to the other playlist, which is regarding photography and cinematography, in the cinema department, you will see that in that playlist we are talking about aperture. Also, you will get it in Kothar Kotha, wherever we are mentioning this visual arts thing. I have mentioned in several areas the utter importance of cinematography, the importance of photography, how you are looking for a story, you are using the camera language, you are looking for something more than what is there. You know, the frame is like a painting, you are telling a story, you are capturing something. So composition, how you are composing it, depth of field, we have talked about aperture, its relationship with depth of field. We have talked about focal length, we have talked about focal length, you know, different kinds of focal length. We have talked about prime lenses, zoom lenses. Either you have a fixed one, like for example 50 millimeter, 28 millimeter, this and that, according to your requirement, a telephoto or a wide, or a you can go for a zoom lens where you have a range and you are choosing among that. But I have talked about the sharpness in that scenario too. When you are choosing prime lens, it is generally sharper. Then you are going for zoom lens, you have something, but there is trade-off too. Then aperture, you know, 1.8, 1.4, 1.22, you know, 8, 11, 13. Then you go on how it is affecting the incoming light. The light is coming, and how, depending on the aperture, you are having more light or less light. Or depending on the shutter speed, the balance of shutter speed and aperture. Because if you shoot with DSLR, suppose you don't have a film camera, Arri or Panavision, or the Sony film cameras. Suppose you don't have all these things, you have a DSLR. So for this Adda, for the sake of this Adda, I can tell you, if you have a DSLR, you can shoot a movie. So what you can do is, you can go for the shutter priority mode, you can go for the like TV is the generally is the shutter priority mode, where you are choosing the shutter speed and it is choosing the aperture accordingly. Then it is like so what you get is, you know, this shutter speed. Then your if you are going for aperture priority, then you are choosing the aperture and it is figuring out the shutter speed. So there is a balance. And then ISO, low light, you can go for a low key lighting. We have talked about key light, fill light, you know, backlight we have talked about. So all these things are there, you know, key light, fill light, backlight. Then if you are having something else, you know, to accentuate one particular thing, you are choosing a light, rim light, hair light, whatever it is, depending on the requirement you are having. But key, fill, or back, or side lighting, whatever you want to call it. I am not sticking to one particular terminology, but key, fill, or back, this has something to do with the position, something to do with the importance while you are lighting something. So you have to understand, key lighting is the key lighting, fill lighting is giving the feel, because you have light. Whenever you are putting light, you have the shadows. So how you are using the fill light to overcome that, you know. Then you have the backlight, it is supposed to do certain things. Then you have the side light, you're changing accordingly. So understand how the light is creating a mood. It is appealing, it is evoking a particular emotion. You can use color as well. Suppose you are shooting in black and white, then you have the shades of gray, and playing with the shades of gray, you are choosing the kind of lighting you want to choose. It can be very stark lighting, it can be very hard lighting, soft lighting, it can be something in the middle. What is that? Towards softer light but not yet soft light. So you can play with all these things, but it is not like that I am mentioning a term and you are going for that only. Whatever is required for the storytelling, whatever is required for shooting that particular scene or that particular movie. So few things I want to mention here. One is the number of cameras. Many directors shoot it with one camera, some shoot it with several cameras, some shoot it with multiple cameras, and how you are positioning the lights. You have your subject and you are positioning the lights. So it is about management too, you know, how you are putting the cameras and how you are depending on the number of cameras you are doing something, you know, based on the position of the camera or the position of the light, you are doing something particular. So all these things are there. And focal length we have mentioned. Just now I mentioned focal length. And if you are shooting in DSLR, always remember that there is APS-C. So this for Canon or Nikon, whatever you are choosing, if it is not a full frame camera, then there is a crop factor you have to multiply depending on the camera like make. It can be Nikon, it can be Canon, it can be something else depending on the crop factor. Suppose you are having a 50mm lens, but that is not a full frame camera, you have to multiply the crop factor, and eventually it will become like if you have the crop factor as 1.6, a 50mm lens will become 80mm. So maybe you are having a lot of pictures, you are using 50mm, and somebody is asking you which lens you are using. Your answer can be 50mm, but the effect you are getting is 80mm, because if you had a full frame camera, then the effect you could have achieved is like an 80mm lens, right? So these things are basic things. I hope you know all these things. Today what we'll talk about is the number of cameras mostly. So some directors are focusing on one or few cameras, some directors are focusing on multiple cameras. Again, the situation will demand. What is your scheduling? What is your budgeting? What is your requirement for that particular movie, you know? So what you are doing is, depending on your requirement, it is requiring a lot of management too. Why scheduling and budgeting? Why I talk about that? Suppose you have to shoot a movie in 6 months. Now you can do that movie if you choreograph, if you manage the camera positions properly. Then what you can do is, this 6 months tenure, you can reduce it to less number of days. You are creating your sets, you are doing your production design, art direction, and according to the requirement, what you are doing is you are changing the cameras, you are changing the lenses. So why you will go for different cameras? It can depend on a number of factors, a lot of factors in fact, but whatever is required, if you have the management sense, you know how you are using multiple cameras, how you are using that camera or that lens for a particular use, you know what you are doing. So for that reason, you know how to use a camera or how to use a particular lens. Suppose you have 4 cameras, one is having a 50mm lens, one is having a wide angle lens, one is having a telephoto lens, one is having a maybe a fisheye lens, or towards the around 20mm, around a 14mm lens you are having. So you have coverage of a particular scene, maybe one particular scene you are shooting with 4 lenses, that can be one thing. And suppose you have created a set and you are just moving the camera in one day, you are shooting multiple things from the script, scenes from the script or sequences from the script. So depending on how you are managing, how you are using the cameras, it can reduce the number of days if you have maintained the other things properly. So it is also important to communicate with your art directors. It is very important to communicate with your your production designer, because in one place you are having a lot of sets, different sets for different scenes. It is already created. Now you have to move the camera and you are shooting a lot. You have planned it meticulously. Maybe this is where you are shooting this, this is where you are shooting this, you are using these cameras, you are using these lenses. Because of lighting, you are doing a lot of changes in decision making. You are deciding in a different way, you are figuring out different choices, you are having extra shots, maybe 2 cameras are giving you the most important shots you want to keep. You are deliberately or meticulously choosing those particular cameras because they will give you the maximum coverage, but you are having 2 additional cameras too. It can be for some particular reason, it can be for extra coverage, maybe you will choose that in the editing table. So all these things you can do. The more you will practice that, the more you will work on it, the more you will get the necessity of the number of cameras, you know. For the lenses, for the particular camera, there can be anything, but ultimately it will come to the storytelling. So you are telling a particular story, right? And for that, whatever you require. So depending on that, you are choosing the number of cameras. Maybe one person is very comfortable with one particular camera. The shooting sequence, everything, you know, the shoots per day, everything. Dailies, how you are capturing your dailies, you are doing it accordingly. Maybe you are comfortable with that. One person is comfortable with more than one camera. Some can be with few cameras, some can be with multiple cameras. They are habituated with that. And sometimes you can start with one camera. Maybe you are making an indie movie, maybe you are making an independent movie, so you do have a lot of budget constraint and other constraints as well. Maybe you are using 1 or 2 cameras, but you know how to use multiple cameras. So maybe one day you are doing the studio movies and you know that how you can reduce the number of days, how you can manage it in a different way, or maybe you want to explore a different way of filmmaking or a different approach towards filmmaking. So far you have used one camera, maybe now you want to explore something else, how you can do it with multiple cameras. Accordingly, you are figuring out how you can reduce the number of days, how you can put the camera in proper position so that you can have the coverage, you can have the efficiency in shooting, you can have the optimum, you know, management of the cameras. You can do all these things. So options are open. You can be comfortable with one thing, can be comfortable with other thing, and eventually you can explore one thing moving from the other thing. So the choices are again open. So accordingly you choose. Focal length I have mentioned, zoom or prime I have mentioned, camera angles I have mentioned, you know, low key lighting I have mentioned, high key lighting I have mentioned, camera angles I have mentioned, pan and tilt I have mentioned. So all these things are there. Pan, when you are moving the camera like this, it is the pan. Tilt is when you are doing this up down tilt, right? And then you can use the dolly when you are going like this, when you are using the crane, from the upper side you are using the crane. So all these things you can do, right? Now the question is subjectivity and objectivity. When you are choosing your camera angles, when you are trying to portray something using the camera language, using the visual language, subjective camera and objective camera, how do you define that? Subjectivity and objectivity, perspectives, that is something you should learn. Information, ultimately the more coverage you are having more information, right? So regarding the scene, regarding the sequence, something can be there in the scene, something can be improvised on the spot. Maybe you are shooting something which is not there in the script, but the situation is telling you you should have this shot. Maybe you will choose it in the editing table, but you are having the shot, you are improvising on the spot. All these things can be there. Key light, field light, backlight I have talked about. So camera and energy, you know, when the camera is moving, there is an energy there in the movement. So maybe the camera is moving, maybe the camera is static. If you look at Ozu's cinema, you know, Japanese movies of Ozu, you will see the camera is fixed, and you will look at the camera angles too, how he is putting the camera to have certain camera angles. But there are many directors for whom you will see the movement of the camera is very important. It is bringing some energy, and that is required in the storytelling. So whatever is required in the storytelling, accordingly you are taking your decisions. So and talking about you know, this talking about the lights, if I talk about the lights, so far I have mentioned the emotions you can have using the lights, the mood you can have using the light, the appeal you can have using the light, you know. Now I am talking about specifically in technical terms. Suppose you are using some gaffers, you are using some electricians, and you need to communicate to them, you know, whatever is required. So what you should know, Specifically technical terms I'm using, you can use the tungsten light, incandescent tungsten light. Sometimes it is called the quartz lamps. If I look at white balance, it is like 3200 Kelvin. If you go for the temperature for your reference, you can go for tungsten light, incandescent. Fluorescent light you can use. HMI you can use. These are like enclosed arc globes, hydrogenum medium arc iodide. That is HMI in short. You can use towards daylight, and this fluorescent light is very energy efficient if you go for it. Then LED, light emitting diodes, you can use those lights as well, around 4800 to 5200 to 6000 K, the temperature if I talk about. Then there is ellipsoidal reflector light, there is xenon light, there is Fresnel, beam projector, moving lights, PAR lights, open face and area. This Fresnel and open face fixtures you can use, and your story will demand what kind of fixtures you are going for, because that will affect the lighting, and the lighting will affect the mood, the painting in the particular frame you are having, the emotion it is evoking. If you are really serious about cinema, then you need to be very meticulous about all this thing as well, how the light is affecting the mood, because ultimately that is the most important thing, or one of the most important things. It can take people away from the movie if you have bad lighting, if you have this thing, this bad use of cinematography, bad use of lighting. If you don't have great storytelling skills, then it can take you away from the story. Then you have soft lights, you have compact lights. So these are the things I mentioned. If you want to go for the reflectors, you can go for reflectors. Reflector, light will come and then it will be reflected. Light will come, it will be reflected. Then you have diffusers. Light will come, it will be diffused like this. So it is like these boxes, and this, if you don't have anything regarding a diffuser, what you can do is you can take a white cloth, and when you have the harsh light or the hard light, you can put the white cloth over the light. So all these things you can do. Bounce lighting, you can do it, reflecting the light. You can have a roof and then you can reflect the light and you can get the bounce light, or you can get a surface and you can get the bounce light. You can use a white cloth, you can have the diffuse light, or you cannot use anything, you can have the hard light, the normal light you are getting. Then master shot, two shots and other shots you are getting. Again, when you have multiple cameras, maybe one camera you are using for master shot, and different cameras you are putting for having different coverages, over the shoulder maybe from this, over the shoulder maybe from that. So why it is important? One basic common sense will tell you, when you are shooting, you have the schedule constraints, you have the budgeting constraints. So suppose you are shooting a conversation, we have talked about the 180-degree rule too, and many people have broken the 180-degree rule, especially Stanley Kubrick broke it really well. So you will see many movies who have broken the 180-degree rule, and they knew what they were doing. So that is even more appealing to us as filmmakers or cinephiles, or people who are looking towards great cinema. For all of them, it is something you should experiment with, and if you know the stuff really well, then you can play with it, and people will be inspired after a long time, or for a long time. They will look at the movie and they will say, okay, we have studied this, and this is how this rule was broken. So that's a great thing, and it had a great emotional impact. So not for the sake of doing it, but that it is requiring, that scene is requiring that, and that is coming from your instinct, your intuition, your expertise, your experience. So these are the things we should respect in filmmaking when you are making great films. And elements of spirituality and camera, obviously it will be there. The genre can be anything. It can be a film noir, it can be a comedy, it can be a drama, it can be any genre. But you will see that whenever you are using the camera, there are elements of spirituality. So many people try to stay behind the camera. They don't want to come in front of the camera. So all these things are there in different variations, in different amount. But what you can do is, whenever you are taking the camera, many people will see in some works of the cinematographers, you have those elements of spirituality. And whenever people are looking at that frame, or maybe if you look at a painting, you will see that you can just stay looking at the painting for a long time. You can stay looking at the frame for a long time. because you have captured it so well, the camera language, the camera and the energy and everything there is to shoot. You will see that the look and feel of the movie is so great. Maybe there is no dialogue at all, but the frame itself is evoking a lot of emotions. So those things are important: texture, feel, mood, emotions, and all these things. Because texture, feel, mood, all these things you are getting using the camera, using the light. Over the shoulder I was talking about, it is like, suppose conversation is having, you want to shoot it from that side, you want to shoot it from that side. Will you, after each dialogue, move the camera like this, like this? Maybe you are doing that when you have less budget, when you are shooting an independent movie, maybe you are doing that. There is fun in that too. But when you have your scope, when you have your budget, when you don't have that much constraint, what you can do is you can put it there, you can put it here too. Then you are covering the conversation. In the editing table, you are choosing, that is camera 1, this is camera 2, you are choosing the camera 1, then camera 2, camera 1, camera 2, or maybe you are holding a bit and then you are going to camera 2. So those decisions you are taking, right? But you have those cameras in place. It is helping to shoot the movie in a better way. You are managing it in a better way. Then there can be one camera which is there, which is covering the entire thing in a long shot. So all these things can be there, right? So ideas and reality, sometimes you will see the ideas are so great and you are still like trying to catch up with the ideas, and the reality and the ideas, what is the gap and how you are catching up with the ideas. Those things we look for when you are making films, because ultimately in the script or in the ideas, when you are having the vision, in fact, when it is in the script, when you are looking towards the visual feel of the movie, then you are looking what is beyond the script, in terms like it is the director's vision, it is the director's storytelling approach. Words are there, but you are going beyond the words. So words, you are not sticking to the words only, you are going beyond words, you are understanding the language of the music, you are understanding the language of camera, and then in a holistic way you are having the film. Suppose in that particular scene, as I mentioned, there is no dialogue at all, but film is a visual medium, so you have the visual language. If you can say through the visual language, people will remember the scene. Sometimes the dialogue may seem very verbose or redundant, and maybe with one shot you can say more than the words. That's what I want to say. So that's why you have to understand those things when you are talking about cameras. Then differences of opinions, obviously it will be there. If I say something tomorrow, we can go for a discussion based on that, but you will see there can be discussions, there can be arguments, but you will learn from all of that. So it is not like if you don't like, you are a bad person. I'm not talking about that. It is an open forum. So when we are having differences of opinions, maybe you have seen something from your perspective, I have seen something from my perspective, then we can have a discussion and we can both learn from each other, and both we can learn from this situation, these arguments and these discussions. So that is very important, open for ideas, open for these experiences and experiments. Some directors are very meticulous, they know precisely what they are doing, the focal length, they know the focal length they are going to choose, they know the type of lenses they are going to choose, they know where to put the lenses, they are orchestrating it, they are putting the camera, staging and blocking, they are meticulous about it. And some will tell the cinematographer, you can go for that. So it is like they know something, the cinematographer will come up something, and together you can make something happen. And sometimes the director knows how the ultimate thing will look like. Maybe he is not communicating in specific terms or in meticulous terms whatever he or she is requiring, but there is a great bond and relationship with the cinematographer. So he or she has conveyed the meaning or the essence of the film to the cinematographer. Then the cinematographer is coming up with something. The director may agree with it, may not agree with it, but he knows or she knows that this is the thing he or she is looking for. Again, ideas and reality and so many things beyond that. But this is the shot, oh, this is not quite like what I was looking for, let's go for another one. That's why we go for multiple shots, that's why we go for multiple takes, that's why we move the camera, we see this from a different position or a perspective. So these things are open, but ultimately when we are looking at the storytelling, when we are looking at the complete product, the film, then we know that there we are not making any compromises. So maybe we are doing previs, maybe we are doing something in pre-production, maybe we are doing elaborate or meticulous storyboarding because we know how the frame is going to look like exactly, you know, and then the camera is helping us to achieve that thing. There can be different ways. Sometimes you have these abstract ideas, and based on this abstraction, you are going for different scenes, different cameras, different arrangements. So you are having a lot of like open space for discussion during the shoot itself. So cinematographer is coming up with great things, the art director or the production designer is coming up with great ideas, and you are changing accordingly. So different people, different work styles, different ways of doing things, but you will learn from each and every situation. You will learn from each and every choice you are making, and it will help you grow. It will help you grow as a cinematographer, as an art director, as a production designer. Ultimately, we are supposed to have fun, right? With very serious work, still we are having some fun. So knowing and learning this is also fun. Maybe you are not using it in this movie, in another movie you are going to use it. So you are shaping your personality, you are shaping you as a human being, you are learning. Sometimes it is like an epiphany, sometimes it is like a great experience to work with a particular director. Different people, differences of opinions, different ways of working, but you are learning from each and every situation. So this is what I wanted to say, but understand the language of the camera. We are doing it in a different way, but compromise is one term I can use. The compromise, you should not compromise the ultimate product, the ultimate film you are going to show. Whatever you are putting in front of the audience, you should not compromise in that. Before that, you can do a lot of calculation, experiments and all these things, but ultimately when you are looking for the ultimate product or the movie you want to take to the audience, there you should not make great compromises. Especially if you are looking to make a great movie. If you want to make a mediocre movie, then you can go for a lot of compromises. But if you understand the language of cinema, if you understand the language of the camera, if you understand the cinema and energy, then you know what you are going for. Or maybe you have the feel, whether this is the right thing, whether this is the wrong thing, whether we can improvise. All these things, you are taking deliberate decisions, you are having your choices, you are going for experiments based on something. That something should be like substance. That thing. You love filmmaking. If you don't love filmmaking, if you don't care about all these things, then ultimately it will be a mediocre product. Once in a while, it can be something maybe people will like, but I am talking about, you are taking those decisions based on your liking of the movie, your liking for cinema, your passion for cinema, your enthusiasm for cinema, your enthusiasm to learn that language, and this language is vast, right? So you are delving deep into this language in terms of technology, in terms of the aesthetics, in terms of the mood and feel, in terms of emotions, in terms of storytelling, and then your choices are making you feel something. Your choices are making you different calls. You are going for different choices. You are having great experiments, and maybe in one film you learn one particular thing, and in another film you are using that. So even if you don't do that, when you are giving lectures to the young generation, you are telling to the next generation, you are talking to the young people, you are sharing that I have made this mistake and I have learned from it. Next time I didn't do that, and I have learned from this mistake, because the camera I could have changed in a different way. If I have to shoot this movie again, I will do this and this and this. So that is also a learning experience. So it should be open for discussion. If you have any question, you can ask, and you can ask me so that I can give you the actual thing or the actual answer. Because otherwise, if you are not asking the proper question, then it is like your assumption, right? Sometimes we can understand that we have a common ground, or we can understand each other. So even if you are saying a different set of words, I am setting a different set of words, still we can understand that you have understood, I have understood. That is there. But if you have not understood at all, then you can ask specific questions to me so that I can answer back. Otherwise, it will be a hodgepodge. It will be a lot of things based on assumptions, and we are not talking about that here. We are very serious about this thing. We are very serious about cinema, the process of cinema, the making of cinema, the love for cinema, the passion for cinema. We are very serious about it. Thank you.